Hello, fellow traveler. I am so glad your path brought you to my campfire today. Please, come closer. Pull up a wooden log, sit down, and let the warmth of this fire reach your hands and your heart. Welcome to the Midnight Nomad, a quiet, safe harbor in this fast, busy world, built for your curious mind and your weary heart. Lately, my journey has taken me through some of the most beautiful, yet quiet corners of the earth. I have walked under towering green forests, sat by silent lakes, and watched the fog roll over high mountain peaks. But no matter how far I wander, my absolute favorite part of the road is always this moment right here. This quiet space where the day is finally done, the map is folded away, and I can simply sit down with you, to rest, to breathe, and to share some quiet reflections. Tonight, I want to talk about something we all do, but rarely notice. I want to talk about the art of letting go, of making our journey a little lighter and a little more peaceful. If you are learning English, or if you are simply trying to find your footing in life, this space is for you. In this corner of the night, you don't have to hurry. You don't have to be perfect. So, let's take a moment together. Roll your shoulders back, drop them down, let go of the tension in your jaw. Take a slow, deep breath, and let's begin our journey. When I first set out on my journey as a wanderer, I made a very common mistake. I thought that in order to be prepared for the unknown, I had to pack everything I owned. I spent hours in my room, laying out my possessions. I packed extra pairs of boots, heavy winter coats, even though it was summer, multiple maps, thick guidebooks, and small trinkets that had no real purpose other than making me feel connected to home. I stuffed them all into a large, brown canvas backpack. I pushed and shoved until the seams of the bag were begging for mercy. I thought to myself, having all of this will keep me safe. It will make me prepared for any obstacle. But when I finally stood up and tried to lift the backpack onto my shoulders, my body buckled. The straps dug deep into my collarbones. My knees trembled slightly under the sudden weight. It wasn't a source of comfort, it was a physical burden. We do this very same thing in our minds and hearts, don't we? We pack our mental backpacks with so much clutter. We carry the weight of yesterday's mistakes, packing every regret, every I should have said this or I should have done that. We pack the heavy stones of other people's expectations, carrying opinions that do not even belong to us. And then, we pack the anxiety of tomorrow, worrying about problems that have not even happened yet. We carry this invisible bag with us to work, to school, into our relationships, and even into our sleep. We wonder why we feel so exhausted, why our spirits feel so bruised. My friend, before we can walk far, we must look at what we are carrying. I ignored the pain and decided to hike anyway. The path I chose was a steep, winding trail that led up a high hill. Within the first 15 minutes, my hike turned into a struggle. Every step felt like lifting a mountain. My breathing was shallow and loud in the quiet forest. My neck was stiff, and my lower back felt like it was on fire. Because the backpack was so heavy, it pulled my center of gravity backward. To keep from falling, I had to bend my body forward, staring constantly at the dirt and stones right in front of my feet. I had to focus entirely on just not tripping over, and because of that, I missed everything. I walked right past a family of deer resting in the shade. I didn't see the beautiful purple wildflowers blooming along the edges of the trail. I didn't even notice the sun slowly setting, casting a gorgeous pink and golden light through the canopy of the trees. I was physically present on the trail, but my mind and eyes were trapped in the struggle of carrying the weight. This is what happens when we live our lives carrying too much emotional clutter. We are so busy managing our stress, so focused on surviving our worries, that we walk past our own lives without seeing them. We are too tired to enjoy the laughter of our loved ones. We are too distracted to feel the warmth of the sun on our skin. We are walking, yes, but we are not truly living. We are just managing the weight. Halfway up the hill, I couldn't go any further. I stopped, collapsed onto a large fallen log, and slid the heavy backpack off my shoulders. The relief was instant, but my shoulders were still shaking. I looked at the bag sitting on the mossy log. I felt angry at it, but then I realized the bag wasn't holding me hostage. I was the one who chose to put all those things inside. So, I unzipped it. I decided to inspect my cargo. One by one, I pulled things out. I found a heavy, decorative iron lantern that I had packed because it looked pretty, even though I had a small, lightweight flashlight. I found 3 heavy hardcover books that I hadn't opened once. I found clothes I knew I wouldn't wear. As I laid these objects out on the log, I had to ask myself a hard question. Why am I carrying this? The answer was always fear. I carried the heavy books because I was afraid of being bored. I carried the extra clothes because I was afraid of being cold. When we look into our hearts, we must do the same inspection. Why are we holding on to that old anger from 3 years ago? Why are we carrying the guilt of a mistake we already apologized for? Often, we hold on to these heavy emotions because we are afraid of letting them go. We think that if we let go of our anger, we are letting someone win. We think that if we let go of our guilt, we are not being responsible. But keeping yourself in pain does not solve the past. It only ruins your present. It was time for me to leave some things behind on that log. After leaving the heavy items behind on the log, my backpack felt significantly lighter. My pace quickened, and my spirit felt lifted. But the mountains have a way of testing travelers. As I climbed higher into the pine forest, the temperature dropped. The warm golden light of the afternoon began to fade, and suddenly, a thick white mist rolled in from the valleys below. It didn't happen slowly. It happened in a matter of minutes. First, the distant mountain peaks vanished. Then, the tall pine trees just 50 feet ahead of me blurred into gray shadows. Soon, the mist became so dense that I could barely see my own hands in front of my face. The world around me simply disappeared. I felt a sudden wave of panic rising in my chest. My heart began to beat faster. In the fog, the path was gone. I didn't know if I was walking toward the edge of a cliff, or if I was going in circles. My natural instinct was to rush, to run forward, to force my way through the confusion so I could find safety. We experience this in our lives all the time, don't we? We enter a foggy season. Perhaps we suddenly lose our job, a long-term relationship ends, or we experience a personal loss. Suddenly, the future we had planned vanishes. We cannot see the path ahead, and we feel terrified. Our instinct is to panic, to make rushed decisions, to force answers because we cannot stand the uncertainty. But running in the fog is the easiest way to trip, fall, and get hurt. Realizing the danger of rushing, I forced myself to stop. I took a deep, shaky breath, walked a few steps off the path, and found a large, moss-covered stone. I sat down on it. I pulled my green cardigan tighter around my body, held my small vintage lantern close, and decided to do nothing. I decided to just wait. In that moment of stopping, something beautiful happened. The forest became incredibly silent. The thick fog acted like a heavy blanket, muffling all the sharp noises of the world. There was no sound of wind, no sound of birds, just a deep, healing stillness. As I sat there in the damp, cool air, my panic began to melt away. I looked at the fog, not as an enemy, but as a gentle visitor. I realized that the fog wasn't trying to hurt me. It was just a natural cycle of the mountain. It was there to tell me, it is time to slow down. You have been walking too fast. I realized that I didn't need to see the entire mountain to be safe. I only needed to see the stone I was sitting on, and the next 2 feet of path in front of me. That was enough. If you are currently in a foggy season of your life, if you are feeling confused about your future, please hear this. It is okay to stop. You do not need to solve your entire life today. You do not need to know where you will be in 5 years, or even next year. Rushing through the confusion will not clear the air. Sit down on your stone, wrap yourself in patience. Trust that the fog will eventually rise, as it always does. For now, just focus on the very next step. After sitting in the silence for a while, a soft breeze began to blow. Slowly, the thick mist began to break apart, drifting away in white, dreamlike wisps. As the air cleared, the path opened up, and before me lay a vast, breathtaking lake. The water was so calm, so perfectly still, that it looked like a giant glass mirror. It reflected the soft pastel colors of the late afternoon sky, shades of pale pink, lavender, and gentle blue. There was no wind to disturb the surface. It was a sanctuary of perfect quietness. Built into the edge of the water was a long, rustic wooden pier that stretched out into the silent lake. I walked slowly onto the wooden planks. With each step, the creaking of the wood felt like a soft invitation to leave the world behind. At the very end of the pier, I stopped. I slid the brown canvas backpack off my shoulders and placed it down on the wood beside me. The feeling of release was overwhelming. My shoulders, which had been carrying so much tension, finally dropped. My chest expanded, and I could finally take a deep, unrestricted breath. The air by the water smelled of wet wood and cold stone. It was incredibly fresh. Often, we do not realize how much pressure we are under until we finally let it go. We walk through life with our shoulders raised, our teeth clenched, and our minds racing, thinking this is normal, but it is not. Sometimes, the most productive thing you can do is to find your own quiet lake, take off your heavy bag, and simply stand still. I sat down on the very edge of the wooden pier, letting my legs dangle over the water. Slowly I pulled off my boots and socks, and dipped my bare feet into the lake. The water was incredibly cold, sending a sharp, refreshing tingle up my spine. It instantly woke me up, washing away the physical fatigue of the long hike. As my feet touched the surface, small, perfect ripples began to spread out from my skin. They moved slowly, traveling across the giant mirror of the lake, distorting the reflected sky for just a moment. I watched them grow wider and wider, softer and softer, until they gently dissolved into the distance, and the lake became perfectly still once again. Watching those ripples felt like a meditation. I realized that our minds are very much like the surface of this lake. Stressful thoughts, worries, and fears are like pebbles thrown into the water. They disturb our peace, creating ripples of anxiety that cloud our vision. But if we do not throw more stones, if we do not fight the water, the ripples will naturally fade on their own. The lake doesn't try to become still. It simply allows the movement to pass. When a worried thought enters your mind, try not to fight it or analyze it. Just watch it. Let it create its ripple, and then let it fade. Your mind, at its core, is a calm and quiet lake. The stillness is always there, waiting underneath the ripples. While sitting on the pier, I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out a small, gray stone. I had picked it up earlier, near the heavy backpack log. I held the stone in my hand. It was cold, hard, and had sharp edges. I decided to play a game of imagination. I looked at the stone and decided to name it. I gave it the name of my biggest worry, the anxiety of not being good enough, the fear of making mistakes and failing. I whispered that worry into the stone, letting the cold rock absorb the heavy feeling. Then, I raised my arm, and threw the stone as far as I could into the center of the lake. Plop! The sound was clean and sharp. The stone cut through the surface of the water, creating a sudden spray of crystal droplets, and then it sank. I watched it go down, down, down into the deep, dark blue of the lake, until it was completely gone. It lay at the bottom of the lake, far away, where it could no longer touch me. I watched the ripples from the splash slowly move outward, becoming softer and softer, until the surface was a perfect mirror once again. The lake had accepted the stone, swallowed it, and returned to its natural peace. My friend, you can do this too. You can choose one worry that is hurting you today. Visualize it as a cold, hard stone in your hand. Feel its weight, and then, in your mind, throw it away. Let it sink into the deep water where it cannot reach you. The world will not fall apart if you let go of your worry. The lake of your mind will simply return to peace. You do not need to carry that stone anymore. Behind the lake, there was a beautiful sunlit meadow with a giant ancient oak tree standing at its center. Its roots were thick and twisted, digging deep into the earth like powerful claws, while its wide branches reached out toward the sky like protective arms. I walked over to the tree, sat down between two of its giant roots, and rested my back against the rough, dark bark. The tree felt incredibly strong, solid, and safe. I closed my eyes and tried to imagine how much this tree had seen. It had stood in this exact spot for hundreds of years. It had lived through violent summer storms, freezing winter snows, heavy autumn rains, and spring winds. It had seen countless travelers pass by, and countless birds build their nests in its branches. Yet, despite everything it had experienced, the tree was perfectly quiet. It didn't complain about the weather. It didn't worry about whether the winter would be too cold, or if the spring would bring enough rain. It simply stood, rooted in the present moment, accepting whatever the sky brought. Sitting next to something so ancient made my own worries feel incredibly small. We humans spend so much energy worrying about things we cannot control. We try to fight the weather of our lives, getting angry when things do not go our way. But nature teaches us a different way. Sometimes, the best way to handle a storm is to be like the tree, dig your roots deep into the present moment, stand strong, and trust that the storm will eventually pass. As I sat under the giant oak, a gentle autumn breeze blew through the branches. Above me, the leaves rustled softly, and a few golden yellow leaves detached from the twigs. I opened my eyes and watched them fall. They didn't fight the wind. They didn't try to cling desperately to the branch. They simply let go, allowing the air to catch them, and danced a slow, beautiful dance as they floated gently down to the forest floor. The tree let them go without any struggle. It didn't try to hold on to them, because it knew that letting go was a necessary and beautiful part of life. It knew that in order to rest during the dark winter, and to grow fresh green leaves in the spring, it had to let the old leaves fall. There is a deep, silent wisdom in this. We humans try to cling so desperately to things that are already over. We cling to old relationships that have ended, to past versions of ourselves, and to memories that only bring us pain. We think that holding on makes us strong, but sometimes, holding on only drains our energy. Letting go is not a sign of weakness or defeat. It is not a loss. Letting go is simply an acceptance of the natural cycles of life. It is making space for new growth, for new spring leaves to bloom in your heart. Look at the autumn trees. See how beautiful it is to let things go. Open your hand, and let the old leaves drift away. Beside the giant tree, there was a wide, sunlit meadow. The grass was tall, soft, and warm from the afternoon sun, smelling of sweet clover and dry earth. I walked into the middle of the field, cleared a small space, and lay down on my back. Lying on the grass is one of the most healing experiences in the world. As you lie there, you don't have to balance yourself. You don't have to keep yourself upright. You feel the immense, silent strength of the earth beneath you, holding your body completely. The earth doesn't ask you to be strong. It doesn't ask you to achieve anything. It simply holds you. I felt the remaining tension in my body melt into the ground. My back flat against the grass, my hands resting softly on my stomach. I looked up at the endless open sky. The sky was a soft blue, with a few white fluffy clouds drifting slowly across the vast space. The sky has no boundaries, no walls, and no pressure. It simply exists, vast and beautiful. My fellow traveler, whenever you feel overwhelmed by the demands of life, please remember this feeling. Find a quiet spot of grass, lie down, and let the earth carry your weight. You don't have to hold the world together. You don't even have to hold yourself together all the time. For just a few minutes, let the ground support you, and let your worries dissolve into the endless blue above. As I lay in the soft grass, the warm wind blew across the meadow. It carried something magical with it. From somewhere in the field, a stream of beautiful, shiny rainbow soap bubbles floated gently over my head. I smiled as I watched them. They drifted slowly through the soft, warm sunlight, glowing with pastel pink, pale yellow, and gentle purple colors. They were so light, so effortless, floating wherever the breeze decided to carry them. Some of them drifted high into the sky, while others landed softly on the blades of grass and popped with a tiny silent puff. I realized that our thoughts are very much like these bubbles. In our minds, we generate thousands of thoughts every day. Some thoughts are bright and beautiful, while others are dark and heavy. But like bubbles, they are not permanent. They are temporary, hollow structures. The problem is that we try to catch our thoughts. We grab onto a worried thought and hold it tightly, turning it into a heavy burden. But what if we just watch them drift by, like these soap bubbles? What if, when a stressful thought enters your mind, you simply tell yourself, "Oh look, there is a bubble of worry. It is beautiful in its own way, but it is temporary." And then, you let the wind of your breath carry it away until it pops. When you let go of the need to control your thoughts, you feel light. You feel free to float, just like these bubbles. Take a deep breath now, and let your worries pop into the air. You are light. You are free. As the sun began to sink below the horizon, the temperature of the meadow dropped, and a cool twilight breeze began to blow. I stood up, feeling refreshed and incredibly light. I gathered some dry pine twigs and small wooden logs, and built a small hearth on the ground. I struck a match, and watched the tiny, bright flame catch the dry wood. Within minutes, a warm, golden campfire was crackling in front of me, throwing a soft, amber glow onto my face and hands. As I sat on a smooth stone close to the hearth, looking at the dancing flames, I felt a deep sense of gratitude. My journey today had been difficult. I had struggled with a heavy backpack, faced a terrifying fog, and felt lost. But because I chose to inspect my bag, because I chose to leave the heavy items behind, and because I chose to pause in the mist, I survived. And not only did I survive, I found the peaceful lake, the ancient tree, and the sunlit meadow. We must learn this essential art of resting. Today is done. The road behind us is finished, and the road ahead can wait until tomorrow. You do not need to walk in the dark. Sit by your fire. Let its warmth heal your tired body and soothe your mind. For tonight, the journey has ended. You have done enough. Slowly, the twilight sky turned into a deep, rich indigo, and millions of glowing stars began to appear. They looked like tiny, brilliant diamonds scattered across a dark velvet canvas, twinkling with a quiet, ancient light. I leaned back, looking up at the vast canopy of the cosmos. The stars have been shining for billions of years. They have watched empires rise and fall, oceans change, and generations of humans pass by. They do not worry about whether their light is bright enough. They do not stress about tomorrow. They simply shine, constant and peaceful, in the dark. Looking at the endless stars, my personal worries felt incredibly small and temporary. Often, we get so caught up in our small, daily struggles. We stress over a wrong word we said, worry about an exam, or feel anxious about what others think of us. But in the grand design of this beautiful universe, our worries are just tiny ripples that will soon disappear. You do not have to carry the weight of the cosmos on your shoulders. You do not have to have everything figured out. Let the starlight wash over your mind tonight. Let it remind you that you are a small, beautiful part of a very large, peaceful design. You are exactly where you need to be. Just look up, breathe, and let the stars guide your dreams tonight. My fellow traveler, thank you so much for sitting with me by my campfire tonight. Thank you for sharing this quiet corner of the road with me. Tomorrow, the sun will rise, and we will pack our bags once again. But this time, we will pack lighter. We will leave the rocks of old regrets and worries behind. We will carry only hope, curiosity, and kindness in our hearts. As you continue your journey of learning English, and your journey through life, please remember to be gentle with yourself. You do not need to learn everything in one day. You do not need to be perfect. Take it one step at a time, one word at a time, one breath at a time. You are capable, you are valuable, and you are doing just fine. Now, it is time to close your eyes. Let your body sink into the comfort of rest, wherever you are in this wide, beautiful world. Sleep well, and dream peacefully. You are safe, and you are never truly alone. I will meet you at our next campfire. Good night, friend.